So the picture is of Savitri after having had this amazing experience of the union of her individual soul with the central being. She finds herself human upon earthly soil. She's back in the little hut with Shraddhavan sleeping by her side, and but she can clearly see that her soul chakra, the psychic chakra, has opened up, and there she because of that, she sees that there's no separation between the soul and the mind, that the soul is participating fully in the outer life, no? And her whole being, we could say, is centered there in the soul, calling to the mighty Mother to take possession of this whole body, this whole individual being. And that is exactly what happens. A living image of the original power, a face, a form, came down into her heart and made of it its temple and pure abode. And when that happens, when the feet of this form of the Supreme Mother have touched the soul center, the deep heart center, it's as if there's an earthquake, a mighty movement rocked the inner space, as if a world were shaken and found its soul. And out of the base of the inconscient in our subtle body, this is the chakra at the base of the spine, out of that a flaming serpent rose up, released from sleep, and it moves up. It's not in the physical body, it's in the subtle body, moves up like a serpent and stood erect. And as it climbs up, it touches each of the centers, each of the chakras, with its flaming mouth. And they all wake up as if a fiery kiss had broken their sleep. They bloomed and laughed, surcharged with light and bliss. And then at the crown, maybe just above the crown here, it joined the eternal space, the transcendent world. So then it says that in each of the centers, in the flower of the head, in the flower of matter's base, the base of the spine, in each of those centers, this flaming serpent energy is joining together the viewless summits with the unseen depths. And he says that these centers are like a string of forts, of fortified places in us. And they are there to protect us. They protect our individual being from the universal being, which when we are growing and developing our individual self, we would just get dissolved in that universal soup if we didn't have these centers around which the different levels and principles of our being could form. No? These are safeguarding us against the enormous world. These are our lines, our individual lines of self-expression in the vast. So that's where we stopped. I'll read on from there. An image set of the original power, wearing the mighty mother's form and face. Armed, bearer of the weapon, and the sign whose occult might no magic can imitate. Manifold, yet one, she set, a guardian force. A saviour gesture stretched her lifted arm, and symbol of some native cosmic strength, a sacred beast lay prone below her feet. A silent, flame-eyed mass of living force. All underwent a high celestial change, breaking the black inconscience blind mute wall, effacing the circles of the ignorance. Powers and divinities burst flaming forth. Each part of the being, trembling with delight, lay overwhelmed with tides of happiness, and saw her hand in every circumstance, and felt her touch in every limb and cell. In the country of the lotus of the head, which thinking mind has made its busy space. In the castle of the lotus twixt the brows, whence it shoots the arrows of its sight and will. In the passage of the lotus of the throat, where speech must rise, and the expressing mind, and the heart's impulse run towards word and act, a glad uplift and a new working came. The immortal's thoughts displaced our bounded view. The immortal's thoughts, earth's drab idea and sense. All things now bore a deeper, heavenlier sense. A glad, clear harmony marked their truth's outline, reset the balance and measures of the world. Each shape showed its occult design, unveiled God's meaning in it for which it was made, and the vivid splendor of his artist thought. A channel of the mighty mother's choice, the immortal's will took into its calm control our blind or erring government of life. A loose republic once of wants and needs, then bowed to the uncertain sovereign mind, life now obeyed to a diviner rule, and every act became an act of God. In the kingdom of the lotus of the heart, love, chanting its pure hymeneal hymn, made life and body mirrors of sacred joy, and all the emotions gave themselves to God. We'll stop there. So who will read? You read.
An image sad of the original power, wearing the mighty mother's form and face, armed bearer of the weapon and the sign, whose occult might no magic can imitate. Manifold, yet one she sat, a guardian force, a savior gesture stretched her lifted arm, and symbol of some native cosmic strength. A sacred beast lay prone below her feet, a silent, flame-eyed mass of living force.
Yes. So this is an image of the original power, the supreme conscious force, the Chit Shakti aspect of Satchidananda, who in Indian feeling and thought is felt as the mother, the supreme divine mother. And this is an image of that original power. She wears the mighty mother's form and face. And the form and face which is described is the image of the goddess Durga. There she's got a weapon, a trident usually. She has this weapon, and she has another sign, which he says is an occult, a subtle weapon, a sign which no magic can imitate. I suppose many kinds of magic, they try to imitate the Supreme Mother's power in one way or another, but she has her own sign, which nobody can copy. And it's as if she is manifold, she sat. She has many, many different aspects. In his little book, The Mother, Aurobindo has described 4 of the main aspects. And we saw also images of other aspects when we read Canto 4. Here she is taking a protective form, a guardian force. She's guarding and protecting. So this is shown, she has quite many arms which show her manifoldness and the different things that her action, But one of them is lifted in a gesture of protection. And beneath her feet she has a lion, a sacred beast. He's lying prone and she has her feet on him. This is a silent, flame-eyed mass of living force, symbol of the pure majesty and power of the Supreme Mother. The other day I found a little note of the mother to Huta. Huta had written to her. I don't know exactly what Huta wrote, but mother replied, "Lions are indeed very nice. I always have at least one with me, but not in the physical, because that scares people and it would make a mess." But we have a beautiful photograph of her attendant, Champaklal, with his hair and his beard and his face absolutely glowing, crouching by her side in this sort of sitting lion posture. And she's written underneath, "The mother's lion." He also had a kind of lion-like temperament. He would roar sometimes. So that image is seated in Savitri's heart. Suresh, you'll read?
All underwent a high celestial change, breaking the black, inconscience, blind, mute war, affecting the circle of the ignorance, powers and divinities, bruised, flaming forth. Each part of the being trembling with light, over, overwhelmed,
Overwhelmed, yes.
overwhelmed with tides of happiness, and saw her hand in every circumstance, and felt her touch in every limb, and said,
Yes. So everything in Savitri's nature underwent, experiences a change, a heavenly change. And then Aurobindo describes what that change entailed. First of all, what it's doing is that it's breaking the blind, mute wall. Mute means silence. The wall of the black inconscient. The inconscient is what seems to us to be totally without consciousness, the primal state of matter. So that is for us a kind of limitation. It's a limitation on the way that our bodies function, even the way that our subtle being functions when we're here in the physical body. But all those limitations now get broken, this wall of the black inconscient. And because that gets broken, then the circles, the limitations of the ignorance get broken also. And she experiences that in different parts of her being, powers and divinities burst, flaming forth. It's as if there have been closed doors and suddenly they open, and these powers and divine beings, they spring out into the different parts of her being. Every part of the being is just trembling with delight, overwhelmed with tides of happiness. If you go out in the sea and it's a bit too strong for you, the waves may overwhelm you, come over your head, knock you over, there you are, thrashing about in the water. But this is a tide of happiness that comes over her again and again. So all the different parts then can see the hand of the mother in every circumstance, in everything that happens, and feels the touch of the Supreme Mother in every limb, in every part of the body, and in every cell, all the tiny little parts that we don't see, that we are normally not conscious of, that make up all the different organs of the body. Everything is feeling and experiencing the presence of the Mother. So this is a transformation. What she had before, what we read about, was a realization, a very strong, overpowering experience of the union of the individual soul with the Supreme Soul. And then the next stage is this calling to the Supreme Being to take possession of the whole of the nature. And when that happens, that's a transformation. So now he goes on describing it in more detail, Berber.
And the Canto of the lotus of the head, which thinking mind has made its green space, and the castle of the lotus twixt flowers, whence it shoots the arrows of insight and will, and the passage of the lotus of the throat, where speech must rise, and the expressing mind, and the heart's impulse run towards word and act. The breath bubbled, and new working came.
So first he speaks of the three upper lotuses. No? There's one here, the lotus of the head, which thinking mind has made its busy space. We are very often in this state of the mind running hither and thither, moving around, hearing the voices and all the offers that are made in this marketplace of the mental. That's the first one. And then this one here, the center of vision and of will. And he says it's from here that we shoot arrows. We shoot arrows towards things that we want to see, and we shoot arrows of will, things that we want to realize in the world. And here, the lotus of the throat. It's obviously the center of expression through speech, but it's also the center of expression in all ways. All kinds of creativity depend on this center here. Speech must rise, the expressing mind, the mind expressing itself in creation and in action. And it's where the impulses from the heart come up and want to find expression in speech and in action. And so it's a kind of, although it's quite a small center with just 2 petals, a lot of work goes on here. Into all these 3 centers, a glad uplift and a new working came. They get changed. These limits, circles of the ignorance are broken down. They get a complete new power of action. And he describes in more detail that power of action. Would you read?
The immortal's thoughts displays urban view. The immortal's thoughts with glad idea and sense. Orphans now bore a deeper heavenly sense.
Yes, you can go on.
A glad clear harmony marked the truth's outline. We set the balance and measures of the world.
And the next sentence also.
Each shade showed its upward design, unveiled God's meaning in it for which it was made, and the vivid splendor of his artist thought.
Yes. So, first he speaks of the thoughts, the higher centers. Instead of this bounded view of our normal mind, there's the immortal's thought. And of course the mind is where we have ideas, mental formations, and it's also where we receive the sense impressions and interpret them. So instead of our dull, drab, limited way of doing things, this in Savitri now, this gets transformed so that it is the thoughts of an immortal or the immortal that take and occupy the mental space. So as a result, everything is seen with a greater significance, a deeper heavenlier sense. Here, the sense means significance, meaning. And it's seen that everything, the outline of the truth of things, all the appearances of the world is now stamped with, characterized by a glad, clear harmony. Everything looks happy and harmonious in its place. So this means she's seeing the world in a completely different way. This reset the balance of the world, the way that she's seeing it, the way that she's measuring the world. All our perceptions are determined by the balance and measures that we have sort of preset in our minds. All this gets changed. So from the vision point of view, even the shapes are seen differently. Each shape shows its occult design, its inner shape, its subtle prototype, we could say. And to her sight, her changed sight, each thing reveals the meaning in it for which it was made. Mentally, we can realize that everything here is a symbol of something divine, but we don't usually see it like that. We see chair, table, window, tree, flower, no? We don't see that deeper purpose and meaning that is made. And we don't see then God's artistry, the vivid splendor of God's artist thought, which is expressed in each and every appearance. That's from the point of view of the upper chakra. And then the will comes next. Alice, would you read?
The channel of the mighty mother's choice, the immortal's will took into its calm control our blind or erring government of life, a loose republic, once of wants and needs, then bowed to the uncertain, softened mind, life now obeyed to a diviner rule, and every act became an act of God.
Thank you. So since the Mighty Mother is occupying and controlling all the centers, this will center, the immortal's will, took into its calm control. It controls all the movements of the life force, what is common to us, our blind or erring government of life. Our will is always stumbling and erring because of the imperfection of our mind. If the mind is pure and occupied by the immortal's thoughts, the will also will become clear and pure and unerring. So he says that life, the life force as it normally is in human beings, is a loose republic of wants and needs. In a republic, there isn't one king or ruler. People decide for themselves, no? So our life, there are needs and desires of many different kinds, and they all have to somehow compromise with each other. And then perhaps we develop further to a level where the mind controls life to a certain extent. It can never control life completely. It's not strong enough for that. But so it's the life might bow to the uncertain, sovereign mind, sovereign as a king, a ruler. But now in Savitri, life obeys a diviner rule, so that every act becomes an act of God. It's a divine rule which rules her entire life. Gumsun?
In the kingdom of the lotus of the heart, ever-changing is pure, high mineral flame, made life and body mirrors of a secret joy, and all the emotions gave themselves to God.
Yeah, let's pause there. This is the heart center. In the kingdom of the lotus of the heart, the native, true, deepest emotion of the heart is love. And now that's what's ruling. Love, chanting its pure hymeneal hymn. Hymen is the Roman Latin goddess of marriage. So a hymeneal hymn is a marriage hymn. But here it doesn't mean a marriage of two people. It means that love that unites us with everybody and everything in the universe. So when we are living by that love, that makes life and body mirrors that reflect a sacred joy, something that is consecrated to the divine, and all the emotions gave themselves to God. In yoga, this conversion of the heart center can be the most powerful movement if it happens, no? That suddenly it's the divine lover that we are seeing and experiencing everywhere, and all our actions and feelings are turned towards him or her, if it's the mother. Mila.
In the navel lotus brought in pale rage, its proud ambitions and its master lusts were tamed into instruments of a great calm sway, to do a work of God on earthly soil.
So the navel lotus here. This is the chakra that we associate with strong lower emotions. But it's also the center that links us with the outside world, our relationships and what we want to get done there. So he says that is a broad imperial range. It has a wide rule now in its transformed state. So those feelings of pride and ambition and wishing to control and have mastery, these now, under the influence of the mother, get turned into instruments for her rule, her great, calm sway. Sway is the word that we use for the rule of the king or the emperor. That's where his will holds sway. It decides which way things go. So this, where we could say this center of our self-will, our ambitions and desires, this gets turned into instruments of that great calm rule of the mother to do here in the material world a work of God. Uma.
In the naval meta centers, speaking past the established theme of daily wrath, desire was changed into a sweet and boisterous grave. A round of little words is left in time.
This is, I'm very, very fond of this description of what happens down here in this lower center. It's quite narrow and limited. It's where all the small desires are. But these are also the enjoyments of the senses. And when it gets divinized, then what happens there is, he says, a childish game. Our daily dwarf desires, these tiny little things, they get changed into a sweet and boisterous play, a romp of little gods with life in time. A romp, it's children playing, a boisterous play of children. And in some of our South Indian temples here, we see friezes of these little gods, these ganas. They are servants of Lord Shiva, and they get his work done. But they are always shown dancing and singing. They are little dwarf beings, fat little fellows, and they dance in a funny way, and they drum on their drums. And there's one of Sunilda's New Year's musics where he shocked everybody by, at the end, putting in a romp, this dance of these little gods in time. It's very funny and quite unlike his usual style of composition. But I think this is what it expresses when this nether center gets transformed. Then life becomes fun for the senses and for the body in a way that wasn't possible before. Joel.
In the deep place where once the serpent slept, there came a grip on matter's giant powers, for large utilities in life's little space. A firm ground was made for heaven's descending might.
So this is the base chakra, the Muladhara, which is kind of existential place for us. This is the base of our physical existence. That's where that flaming serpent was sleeping, coiled up. Now it has awakened and risen up and joined the higher powers. So now there's a connection between the highest and the lowest. And so this lower center gives a control over the powers of matter. Matter has so many great powers involved in it, and mind has found some ways to release some of them, but many more of them can be revealed to the great occultist or the great soul who is gifted control over it. So this is what is happening now, this grip on the giant powers of matter for large utilities, useful action, what's useful utility in the little space of life. So that creates a firm ground, a steady foundation for the descending might, the descending power that's coming from the higher levels into the body. That's very, very important. That if these openings to the universal come, there needs to be a very solid base, and that comes about by the connection of the lowest center with the highest. Sergei.
Behind all rain was our injector's soul, casting aside its veil of ignorance, a light arose and possibilities and powers, into the harmony of its human state. open conscience world.
Thank you. So behind all this action which is going on, this transformation, behind all these different powers and center, her Savitri's soul, her deathless soul, her sovereign soul. The soul should be the ruler of our nature. And that is what has happened to her now. The soul has taken control of the whole being. It has cast aside its veil, its covering of ignorance, and it's allied, it's connected with and collaborating with gods, the great powers of the universe, cosmic beings and powers. It is building up the harmony of its human state, putting each thing and part into its place so that everything works together in harmony. And all this is surrendered into the hands of the great world mother, so that she, Savitri, obeys only the command of the mother. Here she is in this mysterious world, this world which is a puzzle and an enigma, because it is ruled by the inconscient. So often it's difficult for us to know what to do. But if the whole of us is surrendered to the mother, and it's always the mother's command which is showing us what to do, then that changes life completely. So Sri Aurobindo then goes on, Paula, to explain how this happens.
A secret soul behind, supporting all, is master and witness of our ignorant life, admits the person's look and nature's role. But once the hidden doors are flung apart, then the veiled king steps out in nature's front. A light comes down into the ignorance. Its heavy, painful knot loosens its grasp. The mind becomes a mastered instrument, and life a hue and figure of the soul. All happily grows towards knowledge and towards bliss.
Thank you. So even in our ordinary life, even as things are for most of us most of the time, there's a secret soul. The soul is secret behind, supporting everything. It is the master and the witness of our ignorant life. But it allows, here this word admits, means it allows the look of the person, the Purusha with a capital P, the inner consciousness, and the role of nature. So there's a kind of duality, the two in one, the inner consciousness and the outer play of nature. That's how it is until this psychic transformation happens. But once those hidden doors in the deep heart are flung apart, when they are opened, then that secret soul, that veiled king, steps out into the front of the nature of our natural being. It steps out as the ruler. Then a light comes down into the ignorance, this twilight that we are in. And the heavy painful knot of the ignorance gets loosened a bit. It doesn't get completely loosened, but a bit. The mind becomes a mastered instrument, and life becomes, he says, a hue and figure of the soul. A hue is a color. There are 7 hues in the rainbow. So that light of the soul is the ruler. It may express itself in different hues. But if our life can become a hue of the soul, and not only a hue, but a figure, a form and representation of the soul. When that happens, everything in us grows happily towards knowledge and towards bliss. And then we can start treading the sunlit path. Rosa.
The divine presence then takes nature's place and pushes the movements of our body and mind, possessor of our patient hopes and dreams, the beloved despot, our thoughts and acts. She streams into us with her unbound force, into mortal limbs, the immortals' rapture and power. An inner law of beauty shapes our lives, our words become the natural speech of truth. Each thought is a ripple on a sea of light.
Yes. So a divine power takes the place of unconscious nature. Instead of us being driven by natural impulses, instead the movements of our body and our mind are impelled by that divine power. And that divine power is the mother. She takes possession of all our passionate hopes and desires and dreams. And the soul is feeling love for her. A despot is a tyrant. He's somebody who rules without allowing any opposition. No? But when that is the beloved despot who is so wise and so loving and so perfect in every way, that's a different matter. The beloved despot of our thoughts and acts. She determines everything. She streams into us, she pours into us with her unbound force, limitless strength and energy. And so that we feel, even in this physical body, something of the rapture, the intense delight and power of the immortal. And because of that, an inner law of beauty shapes our lives. Mother has spoken about this also. Let beauty rule your life. She means it's not that we always only accept what looks outwardly beautiful. This inner law of beauty should shape our lives. And when she is ruling the whole nature, the words that we speak naturally become the speech of truth. And each thought is like a ripple, as if the whole mind is an ocean of light, and each thought is just a small expression of it. So this is a very beautiful and powerful description of the psychic realization which Aurobindo and Mother have advised us to aim at as the first step in the integral yoga. So next week we'll complete the canto and move on to the next one. Shall we read these lines together? Yes. An image set of the original power, wearing the mighty mother's form and face, armed, bearer of the weapon and the sign whose occult might no magic can imitate, manifold yet one she sat, a guardian force. A saviour gesture stretched her lifted arm, and symbol of some native cosmic strength, a sacred beast lay prone below her feet, a silent, flame-eyed mass of living force. All underwent a high celestial change, breaking the black inconscience blind mute wall, effacing the circles of the ignorance. Powers and divinities burst flaming forth. Each part of the being, trembling with delight, lay overwhelmed with tides of happiness, and saw her hand in every circumstance, and felt her touch in every limb and cell. In the country of the lotus of the head, which thinking mind has made its busy space, in the castle of the lotus twixt the brows, whence it shoots the arrows of its sight and will, in the passage of the lotus of the throat, where speech must rise, and the expressing mind, and the heart's impulse run towards word and act, a glad uplift and a new working came. The immortal's thoughts displaced our bounded view. The immortal's thoughts, earth's drab idea and sense. All things now bore a deeper, heavenlier sense. A glad, clear harmony marked their truth's outline, reset the balance and measures of the world. Each shape showed its occult design, unveiled God's meaning in it for which it was made, and the vivid splendor of his artist thought. A channel of the mighty mother's choice, the immortal's will took into its calm control our blind or erring government of life. a loose republic once of wants and needs, then bowed to the uncertain sovereign mind, life now obeyed to a diviner rule, and every act became an act of God. In the kingdom of the lotus of the heart, love, chanting its pure hymeneal hymn, made life and body mirrors of sacred joy, and all the emotions gave themselves to God. In the navel lotus broad imperial range, its proud ambitions and its master lusts were tamed into instruments of a great calm sway, to do a work of God on earthly soil. In the narrow nether centre's petty parts, its childish game of daily dwarf desires was changed into a sweet and boisterous play, a romp of little gods with life in time. In the deep place where once the serpent slept, there came a grip on matter's giant powers for large utilities in life's little space. A firm ground was made for heaven's descending might. Behind all reigned her sovereign deathless soul, casting aside its veil of ignorance, allied to gods and cosmic beings and powers, it built the harmony of its human state. Surrendered into the great world mother's hands, only she obeyed her soul's supreme behest in the enigma of the inconscious world. A secret soul behind, supporting all, is master and witness of our ignorant life, amidst the person's look and nature's role. But once the hidden doors are flung apart, then the veiled king steps out in nature's front. A light comes down into the ignorance. Its heavy, painful knot loosens its grasp. The mind becomes a mastered instrument, and life a hue and figure of the soul. All happily grows towards knowledge and towards bliss. A divine puissance then takes nature's place and pushes the movements of our body and mind. Possessor of our passionate hopes and dreams, the beloved despot of our thoughts and acts, she streams into us with her unbound force. Into mortal limbs the immortal's rapture and power. An inner law of beauty shapes our lives. Our words become the natural speech of truth. Each thought is a ripple on a sea of light.